why are rabbits better than chickens? Some of this is opinion, some of this is fact. It's up to you to decide, right? So rabbits reproduce quicker, so you get a bigger turnaround on your meat. Also, rabbits are cheaper to raise because from pregnancy to grow out to butcher is only about 30 days of pregnancy and 16 weeks before you butcher them out. Because it doesn't take as long, it's cheaper to raise them, and they are also more quiet. When you also look at their byproducts, so I raise Rex rabbits so I can sell their fur, I can sell a kid out of the litter for pets, it covers its feed cost, right? And not to mention, I prefer the taste of rabbit a little more. And also there's the fact of butchering, right? So if you're butchering out a chicken, you gotta worry about the feathers. If you're butchering out a rabbit, you can take off the entire skin like a freaking sleeve. It is amazing. So I think this is an outstanding question and a great discussion for people who are breeding. So I have two different kinds of rabbits. I have mini Rex and I have Rex. So when it comes to Rex, which are my meat rabbits, I breed, of course, to the standard of perfection, but beyond that, I only keep the animals that are the fastest growing out of their litter that meet the standard of perfection. Outside of that, I butcher all of them. When it comes to my mini Rex, my show rabbits and my pet rabbits, I have a couple different criteria outside the standard of perfection. I look at who, of course, gains weight the best, but also who has the friendliest disposition and who is going to make the best pet. When it comes down my litters, normally I only sell 1 or 2 pets out of every litter, and that is because the others go to freezer camp. Also, I don't want to sell somebody a pet that isn't going to fit into their lifestyle. I want something cuddly, I want something easy to handle, I want something that is the best of the best, even from a pet standpoint. And when it comes down to it, it is better to heavily cull your litters and your lines to get the best than it is to overkeep animals who are not going to perfect the breed. So when it comes down to it, and if you want to shorten it up, I keep the best to the breed of perfection for my mini Rex, and then I keep the fattest, chunkiest, perfect breed out of my Rexes. So I hope this kind of answers your question. Alright y'all, I got an update for you on our doe that was nesting 2 weeks early. She had her babies, so it wasn't a false pregnancy after all. She was pregnant, she just got ready extra early. So while we're here, I figured I might as well touch on a few things for educational purposes. For one, this is a fur nest, and I'm going to have to notate that she did not want my nesting box, and she nested in the back corner of her hutch, which is completely fine, but I'm also going to note that she was nesting early. Contrary to popular belief, you can touch baby rabbits and mom will not reject or kill them. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab a bean so you can just kind of see what they look like. And here is a baby. At this age, they don't have any fur and their eyes are closed, and as you can see, they are very, very tiny. This one looks like it's going to be some kind of broken, but I'm not sure on colors until these guys are closer to a week old. So I'm going to put him back with his siblings and cover him back with fur. So Saddle is a first-time mom, and she had 6 kits, which is really good. I'm also very pleased with the fact that she isn't hovering over them, and she's kind of just leaving them alone. She doesn't have any peanuts, and she doesn't have, like, any over-cleaned babies, which is amazing for a first-time mom. If you have a doe, you'll notice that they aren't going to stay in the nest constantly. They're going to leave the nest alone and go do their thing. Moms typically nurse only twice a day. And the way you can tell if your babies are properly fed is if they have full round bellies. So when it comes to babies and baby rabbits, I don't really worry too much unless I see something obvious, such as they don't have full round bellies, or if we have a lot dying all at once. So other than that, it looks like Saddle's doing great. I brought her out a little high value treat this morning and gave her a little bit of attention, and you know, things are doing great here, and I'm really happy we didn't have a false pregnancy. You're right. Store-bought does not equate to not being raised correctly, but if we look at most chain stores, they do things such as factory farming. If you look at factory farming, it's horrible straight up. There are very few factory farms that do it correctly, care for the animals, and in a lot of instances, if you really look into it, when you say things are free range such as chicken or cage free, it doesn't necessarily mean their life is better. Now, let's say they are raising it correctly and you are getting it from an appropriate source. Are you willing to pay that amount? The reason why we raise our own meat is we raise them correctly and they're more cost efficient. In my opinion, I would rather raise them myself correctly and then butcher them out myself than to run the risk of not knowing where my meat comes from. I think the idea here is do what you can in your own affordability, do what you think is right, but also don't try to force your views onto other people because you aren't other people and you don't know what their means are. To be honest, I don't care if you get your meat from Walmart or if you raise it yourself. You do you, and just try to be the best you that you can be, and if you can afford to properly source it, then do. Whether that be from a local farmer, a local butcher, or grow it yourself, go for it. If you can't afford that, understandable. This world is expensive anymore, and just do what's best for your family. Legit, completely understand it, and I respect your choices. And if you want to, tag me in a video of your bunny. I love bunnies, especially ones that are running around and being happy, because despite me being cold and heartless, I love bunnies. But that does give me a moment to segue on to the conversation of pet bunnies and adoption, because I am a rabbit breeder and I do sell pets. With that being said, I'd like to think that I am a little more ethical than what your pet stores would be, because I do have clauses and I do have contracts. This is Zumi. Zumi is a 15-pound, not neutered buck that my neighbor dropped off because her granddaughter was going to college. I have no idea who Zumi's breeder is. I don't even know what he is, because they say he's a Rex mix, but he's 15 pounds. He could just be fat. Legit, he could just be fat. With that being said, though, we need to be more careful as rabbit breeders. We hear it all the time with dog breeders about how ethical dog breeding means that you take care of your dogs from day zero till the absolute end as a breeder. If an owner can no longer look after them, it is your responsibility to pick them up and take care of them again, or to find them a new home so that they don't end up in shelters. And when it comes to pet homes, I'm the same way. I'm going to make sure that my buns will always have a loving home, and if for whatever reason no one can look after them, they're coming back here. And because they're pets, they're not going in the stew pot. That is one of my things to make sure that people do bring their rabbits back to me. I will make sure that they live out a happy, healthy life and that they go to another pet home. That's just how I am. With that being said, I really wish that more breeders would look at what they're breeding, whether it be rabbits, whether it be dogs, cats, horses, and they make better decisions, because these are animals and they aren't money-making machines. And yes, I do get money off of them and it does help pay for my feed supply, but I am not going to put my profitability above their care, their health, and them ending up in an animal shelter. Alright, so I am going to take you out to the barn real quick so that you can see what I do twice a day. It's super simple. So I go out into my barn and I just do my chores. All my rabbits get grain. If they're a small breed, they get a quarter cup twice a day. If they're a large breed, they get half a cup twice a day. Then they also get a lot of hay, as much as they want to eat, which if you're a rabbit isn't much. For my 2 Rex females over here, this is all the hay they eat over about 2 days. They prefer their bowls of feed. I have 2 different kinds of waterers. I have bottles, and then I just have little Tupperware containers to give them water depending on how cold it is. If I'm goofing around, chores take me like 30 minutes total a day. If I'm not goofing around, I can feed all of my rabbits and get out of the barn in about 5 minutes. And if it gives you an idea, I have about 20 rabbits currently. In the summer, where I have closer to 50 to 100 rabbits, it takes me only about 20 minutes. Long term, I don't think they're very difficult. They're basically no different than when they were itty bitty little babies. You just keep an eye on their feed and you make sure they don't start losing weight unnecessarily. I keep does for breeding purposes for about 2 to 3 years before they go into the stew pot. Boys I keep longer. My oldest rabbit on the farm right now is 4 years old and he is 15 pounds. Now, I do have special cases where rabbits are more difficult, such as if they have nest box eye or they have malocclusion, that kind of thing. But for the most part, I don't have those issues because if I find those issues, I cull those rabbits out. And that is the most difficult part of raising rabbits, in my opinion, is making sure that you keep your lines good by culling heavily. I only keep 1, maybe 2 rabbits out of every litter, and most of the time it's because they're going to pet homes. If I'm going to keep a rabbit, it's only because they are the best of the best and they don't have problems, because I don't want to breed problems into my lines. So ground zero, raising rabbits for meat, I would start with research. Lots and lots of research. Also, see if you're even able to do the butchering and the culling yourself, or if you would need a third party. A lot of people, they look at raising meat rabbits and then they can't actually do the butchering themselves, so it costs them money to go out to a butcher. I do know that there are some local farmers that offer classes and they'll let you cull and butcher their animals out for you as a learning opportunity. Try that before you start there. From there, I would see which breed you want to get. I suggest Californians, New Zealands, or Rexes. You also have silver foxes and creme d'argents, but they're a little harder to find. After that, do you want a rabbit colony? Do you want a cage? Do you want a hutch? What's going to work best for you and your lifestyle? Beyond that, just make sure you have everything ready. Make sure you have your food, your hay, your water bottles. That way when you bring them home, you can hit the ground running instead of panicking, freaking out, and seeing where you need to go from there. So just be prepared. That's really all you can do from starting ground zero. Why Rex rabbits? Mostly because I'm biased. They're just my favorite breed when it comes to meat rabbits. But there are quite a few other meat rabbits that you can get. You can get New Zealand whites, New Zealand reds. You can look into silver foxes, Californians, that kind of thing. There are pros and cons to every breed, and most of the meat rabbits, they kind of grow along the same rate. The difference is what else are you going to use them for? Are you going to have a byproduct of furs? Are you going to have a byproduct for pets? Are you going to be breeding them at a constant rate, or are you going to be a slower breeder? When you look at rabbits such as Californians or New Zealands, they are a commercial rabbit and they are built to just constantly breed. They have a very quick turnover rate when it comes to breeders as well as kits for culling. Compared to Rex that are a little slower, but you can use their furs and they have a nicer fur quality because their guard hairs are the same length as their undercoat. So I'm just biased. I like Rex. I'm always going to say that people should get Rex because I like Rex. So do your research and do what is best for you. All right, you've done all your research, you have all your equipment, now what? What I suggest you do is go on to the ARBA site, and they have a selection where you can find a show or find a breeder. I would check out your breeders in your local area first and see if that is helpful. If not, go to a show. I love connecting with rabbit people, and a lot of times you can go to shows and somebody there will know somebody with the breed you're looking for. And there might be breeds you're looking for with breeders who have, rabbits for sale. Now, another thing you can do is I have a couple of rabbit groups on Facebook I'm a part of. I have a meat rabbit group. I have a Rex group. I have a genetic color group I go to because I'm a nerd. Go onto these sites and ask around, talk to people. Now, there are also sites like Craigslist. Those are a little sketchy sometimes. So I suggest for the most part staying away from those, but they're not necessarily bad. You just have to vet your sales a little more. And I always suggest that if you're going to get a rabbit, you get a rabbit with a pedigree. this is a pedigree. It just shows me from the front to the back. Here is the rabbit, their parents, their grandparents, and their great-grandparents. And that way I can look at lines, see what I expect in my lines from everything from weight to what colors they might throw. And then also I can use this to show if I want, because I like to show. It's a lot of fun, and sometimes it puts me in connection with people who can buy my rabbits. And it also keeps me in the know of what the standard of perfection is to make sure my rabbits are the best of the best.
This may be a personal question, so feel free not to answer, but were you by chance homeschooled by a pigeon?
All right, y'all, you got me. We are in debate mode. I love it. Let's keep talking about this rabbit starvation, also known as protein poisoning, and something that is constantly brought up when I'm raising rabbits, right? 2005 studies showed that if you eat only rabbits, you'll get protein poisoning and there's nothing you can do, right? Wrong, they were only using wild rabbits, game over. If you look at wild rabbits compared to the domesticated rabbits have a higher fat content, therefore lessening your chance of protein poisoning. With that being said, honest question for all of you. Why are y'all only trying to eat one kind of food? Y'all need a varied diet. If y'all are just trying to eat meat, y'all are gonna get scurvy. And I'm not talking about dietary supplements on top of just eating meat. If y'all are just eating meat, you're going to get some kind of disease, whether it be rabbit, whether it be chicken. The idea here is balance. Eat your fruits, eat your veggies, eat your potatoes. And if y'all are going to use a study to argue, make sure you're actually reading the whole study. I'm not just saying read through it, I'm also saying look at your sources. Make sure that it's not a biased study. And don't just quote something for funsies. So right here behind me, I have a wonderful article about amino acids to fats to proteins, all of the stuff you need to ensure no matter what you eat, you are getting enough fats compared to protein.